Okay. So what's going on in Halisord? Briefing on current curriculum in schools. Sierra has scheduled a short meeting at the Ministry of Education to discuss the current curriculum taught in schools. The ministry building was located in the government district right next to the Minister of Health. It was a tall, narrow, and wedge-shaped, like a slightly open book. Near the front gate, there were many statues of world-renowned scientists and thinkers. The largest, of course, was that of Artvin Einstein, the greatest scientist of all time. Above the main entrance was a familiar inscription, Estrensis Agnikar av Gerginia, Int Orla Almerg Woltieni. Education is the premise of progress in all societies and all families. Inside the building, I was greeted by Sierra's assistants as they led me to the meeting room where she was waiting inside, and she stood and gripped my hand. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Sierra. I will cut straight to the chase. Our progressive reform of Sordland's education system is well underway, but there is one sticking point. It involves evolution versus creationism. As it currently stands, schools across Sordland can't decide whether to include evolution, creationism, or both in their curriculums. Rural schools often decide to favor creationism only, which puts students at a disadvantage when it comes to entering university. The effect is especially noticeable among young women. My suggestion is to make teaching the evolution mandatory and preferably ban creationism altogether. Okay. Evolution is the idea that it ought to be outright banned. It's dangerous. I love the idea of making a character like a President Rayne whose viewpoints are insane. Right? Where he just random shit over the place. Like, he hates creationism, but by God is he's the world's strongest feminist. Okay. I don't agree with teaching our children supernatural nonsense like creationism. That's great to hear. It sounds like we're already aligned on the matter. Lucy and Gade has entered and Nocton entered. Excuse me, some urgent business has kept me away. Welcome, Mr. Glade, Mr. President, Miss Walda. Okay. Okay, well, we were discussing the curriculum. Sierra has made some excellent points. Very well, let's hear them. Well, continuing from my previous points, it is my conviction that we should require the mandatory teaching of evolution in Sordland's public schools and cut creationism completely out. If we want children from rural areas to have the same opportunities as their urban counterparts, this is the way. Opening students' minds and reducing the role of religion in schools will also lead to more equality between young men and women. Miss Walda, don't bring your pet cause into this, Mr. President. Are there any other considerations you may not have thought about? Although I myself believe in evolution, we must be careful not to alienate our rural conservative voter base. We owe a lot to their support. Forcing their school districts to teach evolution could irreparably damage our standing with them. Every modern nation is reducing or removing creationism from their curriculum. Yet we are supposed to allow schools to promote fundamental and yet sexist ideas from thousands of years back. So is that what we're doing now? Copying what other nations are doing instead of paving our own way? If it works, why not? Look at the analysis. It's clear that if the superpowers are doing something right. Should we reinvent the wheel, Mr. Glade? You speak as if we could go import any influence from other countries. That's not what I said. Their voices started to get louder and louder. I held up my hand for silence. Should teach creationism exclusively. I'm kind of leaning towards just doing both for right now, because again, it's like 1954, and he is right. A lot of our voter base is in the conservative areas. You know, we are like a Big Ten party, so for right now, we'll do a little bit of both. Yes, although I won't like it, I still believe schools are no place for religion. You know what? I won't like it either. You'll have to prepare to lose a lot of voters. Sierra looks me in the eye. It's your decision. Don't forget, future generations of sword issues are counting on you. I think this is a fair middle ground. You're doing so much for the rural people already. You know what? You're right. You are right. It's time for the urbanite population to get something out of this, huh? But we'll make teaching evolution mandatory, but schools may promote creationism alongside it if they wish. Unfortunate, but it is a better outcome than banning creationism altogether. I disagree. Rejecting creationism would have been a signal that we were redirecting Sordland towards a scientifically and technologically advanced future. They turned and looked at each other. Lucian lifted his eyebrow and Sierra held his gaze for a couple of seconds. The meeting ended shortly after. Okay. 7 pieces of news. Overview. I'm guessing this is a yellow. We have economic stabilization in Lorraine and in Agland. We'd love to see it. We have a consistent... The economy of state. Look at this! I am the world's greatest economist. Economist. Look at this. Look at this shoot. It's fucking mooning. We're rich as hell. Ignore. See this -10? Just pretend that's not there. Look. We have 10 whole dollars. We're rich as shit, man. We're rich as hell. Okay. Welfare, creation, evolution, education with creationism. That's fine. Okay. We got a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. What's going on in Arcasia? Amidst growing tensions, the ATO is engaged in a delicate balance act with Kinao, a key member showing signs of distancing itself from full membership to observer status. Central to this shift is a dispute resolution between Kinao and Arcasian PMCs, which has fueled concern over the sovereignty, rules-based order, and the autonomy of Kinao. The ATO has responded to these concerns with a serious warning to the PMC CEOs and a series of concessions aimed at reaffirming Kinao's autonomous standing or retaining its essential alliance ties. The flexibility of the ATO in addressing Kinao's concerns reflects a strategic importance of the member state and its alliance commitment to balancing members' sovereignty with a collective security interest. Yeah, so canal is down here. You think it's called canal because they built a canal between, like, these two areas here? By the way, when do we ever get to talk to, like, these other guys down here? Like, they haven't really done too much. What's going on in Wayland? Wayland President Victor Smolak is drawing his operations against the British Freedom Front to a close. The consensus is that while the Wayland's army went a long way toward neutralizing the British threat, there were many preventable casualties. Furthermore, despite Wayland's best efforts, not all hideouts have been eradicated, and anti-Smolak sentiment is at an all-time high among the remaining insurgents. They named their whole ass country after the canal. I mean, Panama did it, so why not them? I think that's everything that's going on here. What's going on in Vagland? As the economy stagnates, Vagland is reporting a slight dip in employment rates, as well as the shuttering of some local small businesses. However, some larger corporations remain unaffected, and several of the city's big agricultural concerns are reporting growth. Fantastic. Finally, the petite bourgeoisie are getting what's coming to them, right? Get their small businesses out of here. I'm all for the grand bourgeoisie in Sordland. They're the ones that are actually going to give me some cash. Victory Day event. Okay. Language bill prepared by Kerso. He's preparing a bill which aims to unify the Swordfish education by making Swordfish the only language. We're definitely going to veto that, for sure. Okay. Kerso raises the Blutish question. Not a great way to start this. Yesterday, in the Grand National Assembly, the NFP leader, Kerso Kibner, proposed a law that would make Swordfish the only language accepted in educational institutions, boldly standing up for the Swordfish culture and tradition. This law, the Unified Education Language Act, is squarely aimed at the British community, whose integration into Sordland society has long posed a problem. Educating children solely in the official language of the country will help cement their Sordland identity and quash the threat of British independence in Sordland, said Kibner in his speech to the Assembly. The city of Deer is busy preparing the Day of Dissension, the annual celebration of the founding of Neriti. Though religion plays a smaller role in Sordland's daily life in the years past, the day still holds special importance for many Nurists, thousands of whom have already begun undertaking their pilgrimage to the tomb of St. Dast. The cathedral in which it's located, Deer's Arch Sanctuary, is currently undergoing renovations, set to be completed in time for the festivities. In accordance with presidential tradition, Anton Rayne will be making an appearance at the event. And nationalize the Big Four, now! As the debate about privatization versus nationalization intensifies in the capital, the Hall of Sword Post firmly believes that President Rayne should come down on the side of nationalization for all the so-called Big Four companies, including the current fully private Heart of Sordland and Bergia Steel. Full nationalization would prevent price gouging and prevent CEOs like Marcel Carranti from consolidating power. But even the government taking minority ownership in both companies would go a long way towards ensuring they act according to state interest. Okay. Under pressure to catch up with the education system of Arcasia and Unicatana, President Rayne has decided to enforce the teaching of evolution in public schools. We can expect to see some pushback against this decision, especially in Sordland's rural areas where creationism has long been the default. President Rayne did specify that the teaching of creationism will still be allowed, but this may not be enough to mollify religious conservatives, and will only anger left-wingers who are gunning for creationism to be banned. Okay, don't let the pro-government elites fool you. Nationalization of Sordland's Big Four corporations would be a disaster for our country. Instead, we advocate for the privatization of state-owned enterprises, that in mining and the Sordland State Corporation. Both companies have grown sluggish from lack of competition, and even private interests taking a minority stake could lead to greater innovation and a brighter future. Okay. President Rayne, perhaps swayed by valid arguments by Education Minister Sierra Walda, has made a decision to make evolution a mandatory part of the school state curriculum. This switch is a huge step forward for Sordland's rural youth, who have long been at an educational disadvantage compared to their urban counterparts. However, in a concession to backward-thinking conservatives, schools will still be allowed to teach conservative creationism alongside evolution. We can only hope students choose to listen to science and ignore religious propaganda. Okay, and what's going on in Rika? A deep dive into the workings of the Otoke plan reveals more than just economic undertones. It's an integrated play to advance Malevist ideologies in strategic battlegrounds. Sources have indicated that substantial funds have been from the plan have channeled to support Malevist organizations and educational structures in Rika. The region poised between UC's Malevist model and Arcasian capitalism. It seems that investment is not just about infrastructure, but also ideological indoctrination. While Arcasian interests jostle for influence, the Otoke's plans preferential treatment of these battlegrounds just a broader strategy, taking a balance in United Katana's favor and away from Arcasian capitalist outreach. The real question remains, will Rika's future be determined by economic development or ideological warfare? So we got lobbying effort in the assembly. Chief strategist Lucien Gald is preparing a well-planned lobbying effort in Parliament, which would specifically use sway on the fence MPs for the upcoming constitutional vote. The plan includes lavish parties, gifts, and even some political favors. Should we go ahead with the plan? Do we? Your own party hates the bill. Is there a way for me to see, like, how support is coming along? Is this illegal? Am I committing a crime by doing this? I do have $2. I don't think they hate it necessarily. Again, I don't really see any numbers here. Spend some money, generous amount of money. How do you even get up to $15? That seems like a lot. But I kind of do need this to pass, so we'll spend the $2. I'm sure that's fine. City information, don't really care about you. Let's attend Victory Day. Sergei drove us to the city of Gen, a stronghold of Swordish nationalists, for an event organized by the opposition parties to discuss current events. In reality, it was probably a publicity stunt to show Sordland that the leaders of the assembly could sit around the same table. The National Front Party, which governed the city, undoubtedly had the biggest hand in the organization of the meeting. It was not a coincidence that it fell on Victory Day. Today was a day of special symbolic importance for Sordland. Every year on the 14th of March, proud patriots from all ages gathered in to celebrate the end of the Sordid Civil War and Tarkin Sol's victory. Gen had survived one of the worst atrocities of the war, and his Victory Day celebrations were the most jubilant in all of Sordland. If the president does it, it's not a crime. Very true, very true. Originally, only Peter and I were scheduled to attend, but after learning about new developments within the Ishval Ersin case, Nika Morga was invited as well. Representatives from both the PFJP and the NFP were told us that they want to talk about the case in more detail. Nia departed Halisord first, and Peter and I left on our own a little later. Peter was sitting next to me in the presidential car, skimming through the morning newspaper in silence. Suddenly, Sergei rolled down the soundproof window. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, we are about to arrive at the Gen Center of Culture. Miss Morgana was already arrived, and she'll be waiting for you. Peter raised his head to look out the window. He folded the newspaper and laid it beside him. Wow. That was too comfortable of a drive to have been that fast. See, I wasn't joking. Sergei's the best. No kidding. My driver Sveta couldn't hold a candle to him. Although I'm sure I wouldn't mind navigating her dangerous curves one day. Peter laughed. Nah, I should ride with you guys more often. I can't believe I could actually read on the go. You're embarrassing me, sir. I'm no special man. It's the Kadila. Sergei took a left turn and drove through the tiny streets of Gen. The city looked surprisingly clean and well maintained. There's no sign of the destruction the city suffered during one of the heaviest battles of the Civil War. We slowed down in front of the colorful plaza overlooking the massive concrete building with a giant sign that read, Gen Center of Culture. Looks like the NFP mayors have really transformed the city. Wasn't this an abandoned warehouse for the longest time? I believe it used to function as a rebel militia base during, and a little while after, the Civil War. All right, the Black Battalion. Been a while since I've heard that name. Sorry to bring it up. May it never be spoken again. Sergei stopped the car and went outside to hold the doors. Here we are, sirs. I hope you have a great day. We got out the car and walked towards the entrance of the building. Every spot around us was decorated with the flags of Sordland. The comically large amount of flags almost fully enveloped the building around the plaza in maroon, white, and gold. At the entrance, Kersto Kibner, the head of the National Front Party, was waiting for us in his iconic brown suit, watching the sky. Look at this guy, so full of himself. How did this clown convince the PFJP to have triatal talks with them anyways? Oh, I dropped my lid. Probably, you know, the same reason why we're here. It's Victory Day, remember? How could I forget? Lucian nagged about the importance of this day for 20 minutes straight. I broke my soul. Seeing us arrive, Kersto approached us with a smile. Thank you for being here on this glorious day, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President. As the former mayor of Gen, it is an honor to welcome you to this fine city. Okay. It looks like you were a good mayor. Maybe you should think about running for local office again. Get his ass, get his ass. Okay, well, you know, thank you, Mr. Kibner. We shook hands. Thank you for organizing this, Mr. Kibner. Representative of the PFJP and Mr. Morgana already inside the private meeting room. Hopefully, we'll be finished before the festivities start. Kersto gestured at the doors behind him. Shall we? Please. Just follow me. We entered the building and walked through the massive conference hall until we approached a door towards the back of the building. We'll have the meeting here. Kersto opened the doors for us and entered the meeting room. PFJ Peter Francis Richter and his deputy, Manoli Shohil, are already seated on the left side of the table. As soon as we entered, Nia came to greet us. After showing us our seats, Kersto sat down next to his deputy, Remis Hallström, who is a name that I don't think we've seen yet. Okay. He is a founding member of the NFP, fair enough. This is a meaningful day. Thank you for coming here on behalf of your parties. But despite the festive atmosphere, we in the PFJP want to raise a few important concerns about the worrying state of affairs in Sordland. Kersto stopped for a moment for checking his notes. Very worrying indeed. Mr. Richter and his analysts have been working on an analysis of the blood problem. As soon as they brought it up, we gave our support without reservations. The blood problem? Okay, no, phone? Thank you, but no thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the analyst is about racism and radicalization in Sordland. And our main topic is the case of Ersin versus Sordland. Please don't try to spin it. Of course, Mrs. Shahil. Mr. Hallström just wanted to point out that his analyst was focused mainly on topics related to Bloodish people. I'm surprised your parties have conducted a joint analysis. Well, we thank the NFP for assisting our research, of course, but this is by no means a joint analysis. Our parties have vastly different opinions. Okay, well, I mean, I'm listening. I will hear you out, but know that I will not act on anything before talking to the representatives of the Bloodish community. Let's get back on track, ladies and gentlemen. You just friends. I want to give the word to Mr. Richter to explain the issue. Thank you. Our analysis of the current tensions between the Bloodish and Sordland populations in Sordland displays a worrying picture. As much as I hate to say it, the threats of the Bloodish Freedom Front is getting real again. The situation with Rumberg and Valand is very concerning. The increasing discriminatory actions of the Governor Bergia are resulting in a radicalization of many young Bloodish people. Distressingly, the number of radicals have increased significantly after Valand's Operation Bear Trap. I also point out that the recruitment numbers of the BFF have increased significantly within Nurse communities. Peter frankly looked at the papers. That is correct. The reports show that 39 Nurse sanctuaries in Bergia are now classified as red threats by the authorities. Many priests in the region have also suspected of having ties to the BFF. The Religious Harmony Bill would have directly crippled this network they established within our sanctuaries, as the threat to the BFF poses is a direct one. This issue requires direct actions that would bear direct results. I am disappointed by the lack of action taken by the USP administration. Okay. I mean, your bill would have unnecessarily raised the already high tensions. You surely did well by vetoing it, Mr. President. Thank you, Shahil. I appreciate that. Our suggestion is to finally enforce the official language of our country as stated in the Constitution. We're working on the United Languages Act. It is aimed directly at the breeding grounds of the BFF. The police have already infiltrated 32 BFF training grounds in remote towns around Bergia that pose as middle schools. Despite all the evidence, similar schools keep popping up. The so-called activists are constantly blocking Governor Braun's attempt to stop these schools, claiming that he's attacking their right to language. You can't take away Bloodish people's rights to be educated in their own language. That's insane. Please read the proposal carefully. It does not take away anybody's rights. It only gives the state a way to control the radicalization of these schools that teach bloodish nationalist propaganda. And according to the Constitution, the language of Sordland is Sordish. If nothing is to be done to enforce it, we are breaching the Constitution. This law simply enforces it. With all due respect, Mr. Kibner, this bill is not strong enough. The bloodish language should be completely banned. You know people like Mrs. Shahil and Ms. Regana are never ever going to vote for your watered-down bill. Remus cares to reposition himself on his chair and continued. True, it does not ban bloodish language or bloodish education. It will instead make Sordish mandatory to learn for everyone living in the country. This will only decrease the tension in the long term. That's a fair point. However, the wording of this bill is far too vague to work as intended. It gives the government way too much power over educational institutions. I disagree. The language is quite clear and is in line with the Constitution. But we can still improve it, of course. It is true that it gives us more control, but it is a necessary compromise. I'll have to read it in detail to decide if I can support it. And the PFJP will not allow this bill to pass the Assembly. Let's not make statements about the party hasn't agreed on yet. Molyneux looks furious. She opened her mouth to respond, then read the room and closed it again. As if the PFJP has the influence to change anything. It may continue. If I may continue with our analysis, the situation is also connected to Rumberg. As everybody knows, in the case of a future incursion, BFF forces in Sordland could become an existential threat. I do think we need to remove the governor. We got to figure something out there. Also, let me know if my microphone is peaking. I can't tell. It looks like it's really loud in OBS, but let me know if it actually is getting too loud. I do think we need to get rid of the governor. That is why we have to remove the authority of the governor. It's great that we are aligned on this matter. If we are to do something about it, because the reality is the secessionists are on the rise. He adjusted his tie and continued. Our analyst matches with what the Ministry of Interior shared with us. But despite this fact, we believe the ministry is hiding information from us, which is actively fueling the tensions behind the scenes. As much as I now support the strict response against the BFF, it must also be coupled with the expansion of rights for British people. This is the only way that we can fight against radicalization. That is BFF propaganda. What rights are we talking about here? What can a sword and Sordland do that a blood cannot? You are using soft language as a cover-up for your willingness to negotiate with terrorists. Are you a BFF apologist, Mr. Richter? Remus shouted the last sentence. Peter tapped on the table to get his attention. Please do not raise your voice, Mr. Hottestron. The mood in the room has turned sour. Is the USP that desperate for Mr. Richter's support now? Melanie bellowed out a loud laugh. Mr. Vectron is the last person to sway the PFJP. What is that supposed to mean? Get Peter's ass. Enough! Everybody in the room was silent and looked at me. Okay. From now on, nobody speaks until the speaker finishes their point. Kessler and Peter nodded. You heard the man. Please finish your point, Mr. Richter. We require support with more pressing matters. This might have very significant consequences for our British citizens, and we may serve as a dangerous trigger if we are not careful. Franz gestured at Melanie. She carefully placed several pieces of paper in front of her. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, and Mrs. Minister, as you already know, there is a major Supreme Court case in the moment. Ishmael Ersin is suing the governor of Bergia, Felix Braun, for infringing upon the liberties of British people and demands that the Constitution be revised. Because of this argument and the implications, Felix Braun, and consequently, the very constitutional of Sordland is under trial. The fact is, he needs to be punished and the Constitution must be reviewed. I'm aware of this case. In fact, we are already working on revoking the current special zone status in Bergia. It's great to hear. We'd be very happy if you could share the details once they are more concrete. We'll definitely give you the support to that when the time comes, Mr. President. However, the case of Ishmael Ersin has a bigger reach than Bergia. Nia raised her hand and spoke. I was already involved in the case. Because of the implication of the Constitution, there is no way the Supreme Court will agree with Ishmael Ersin on all of the points. Not if all three of the parties in the Assembly support Ersin together. If we can put pressure on them, we only need them to agree on a few of those points. Okay, all parties. Is the NFP really willing to support Ersin, Mr. Kibner? For peace and harmony in Sordland, yes. But perhaps we must clarify the details first. Okay. Well, what's most likely outcome of the case is probably that Ersin loses. The first and most likely option is that the Supreme Court completely ignores the arguments and rejects it out in its entirety. If they ignore all the points and strike against Ayerson, Governor Braun will be free to follow the discriminatory policies without any obstacles. And in a possible future case, the court's interpretation of Ayerson's case will be the basis of all future rulings, which opens the way for suspending the rights of non-swords. It would effectively erase any progress that has been made regarding Bloodish rights, and will embolden anti-Bloodish proponents to follow their actions freely. Okay, well, we definitely can't let that happen. Exactly. That is precisely why our expectation is to see a different result this time. The stakes couldn't be higher. Okay, well, what are the plans and suggestions? In short, the plan is to release a unified statement to the justices, declaring our support for Ayerson and explaining why it is so important. The only good result would be if the Supreme Court reiterates a commitment to the pillar of unity in soulism. Mr. President, despite previously being against it, I am now completely understand why Sordland still needs soulism. We need unity more than ever, and Article 6 is that unity. We do not need soulless unity. If the NFP breaks up into two separate parties, I'll be very happy. Gerso stared Remus down and continued. There's a fracturing going on right now. If the court reiterates the definition of sword in Article 6 as an all-encompassing term, they would be acknowledging that Ayerson and others like him are indeed protected by the rights of the sword's people, which they are. As a result, the resettlement policy of the year would be reversed, opening a way for Governor Braun's removal and a de-escalation of tensions in Bergia. I mean, I'm glad that we're at least all on the same page that we hate Governor Braun. Okay. Okay. This ends up okay. Yet again, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, what does the PFJP think? I personally somewhat agree with Mr. Kibner on this. However, our position as the PFJP is that Article 6 does indeed discriminate against non-swords. We have a positive outcome on this case alone doesn't suffice. We agree to come together in support of Ishmael Ayerson, but we believe our statement should include acknowledgement of the inherent racism within the Constitution. We must use this opportunity to show the flaws in the Constitution. If the court agrees that there is some conflict between the articles, or recognizes discrimination, and the Hawker Court is going to listen to that, they are not, for sure. Besides, we do not agree with your inherent racism, hogwash. You still have to state that it is your party's opinion and does not reflect the NFP. We won't take part in that. That would make the statement look weak and disorganized. There is no consistent strategy. I don't think it would work. Okay, well, I've heard. I already know significance. We don't need to retread that. I've heard enough. I think we have enough information to be able to say that we are deep in the mud here. Peter laughed at his own joke attempt, but nobody else reacted. Well, I think the NFP stance could do some good for the British people without provoking the establishment. But even that might be risky right before the vote. But the PFJP stance would be too radical for our party, and I think it might be better to keep our administration out of this. I'm not sure it's worth the risk right before this vote for reforms, but the decision is yours. Okay. Tell them why we should try to convince them to reiterate their position on Article 6. Because it's the only way to decrease tensions, and the Supreme Court can't afford to look hypocritical, so they'll have to take the soulless side. I still think of that admitting defeat against soulism, but Mr. Kibner is right. The Rummrig situation demands extraordinary measures. Is the PFJP willing to join in on this statement? As much as I don't agree with it, we are willing to compromise and join in. But if you are going to go this way, we will still need to make our separate statement as party policy. Melanie was shaking in her seat with fury, but managed to keep herself silent. And how do you think the Supreme Court will react if we do it your way? I truly believe they will be convinced. It is not against our ideology, and that is what Colin Soul intends with the Constitution. We'll be shooting them with their own guns. Just imagine, all parties in the Assembly are reminding them of their duty with their own beloved Constitution. Mr. Hawker can't take that pressure. What do you suggest we do, Miss Morgana? Nia leaned in and whispered. I definitely do not agree with Mr. Kibner or Mr. Holstrand. I don't see Solemn's unity working in reality. But I also have to say that pushing this position could have an effect on the outcome of the case. Mr. Hawker can't agree with the traditional soulless interpretation after all. However, as long as our law enforcement are still filled with anti-blood officers, I don't believe the change on the ground will be so visible. Okay, what do you think, Peter? Peter leaned in. I actually think it's risky, Anton, but if it works, which it actually might, could make a difference. If the court really feels the pressure and accepts it, the lower courts will need to adhere to their interpretation. It might not get rid of legal discrimination, but it could at least decrease it. But with the vote of our reforms coming in so soon, it's a leap of faith. Okay. I'm just not going to listen to PFJP. I don't think that, I don't think it's going to work out for us. Okay. USP will join the statement. We will argue that Article 6 are inherently discriminatory. I think we'll join the statement with Mr. Kibner. I'm going to throw them a little bit of a bone here. For once, I'm going to side with them. USP will join the statement. We'll argue that the British people are considered swords for the law, as Mr. Kibner suggested. It's great to hear. We'll get to work immediately after the celebrations. I don't like the sound of this. Neither do I. As much as it may be needed, this is only strengthening the soulism of the USP. We all know Swordish don't agree with Soulish nationalism. We'll talk about this later, Remus. Swordish will have to listen to me this time. We'll also have to support the effort for the sake of the positive result. We appreciate all your comments, ladies and gentlemen. But now the USP stance is clear. We should probably end the meeting. After bidding our farewells, Carousel took us aside the plaza and joined the Victory Day events on the plaza. Okay, what's going on in the news today? The Big Three unite against Governor Braun. Yesterday's Victory Day celebration marked a historic moment for Sordland's political landscape. All the parties in the Assembly, the USP, the PFJP, and the NFP, released a joint statement demanding the Supreme Court to remove Governor Braun from office and to serve the justice that is due to the British citizens. The parties brought up Article 6 of the Constitution, which defines all citizens as swords, accompanying everyone regardless of ethnicity. Governor Braun's policies, including the controversial resettlement order, have been accused of infringing upon the rights of British citizens. The statement from the political parties show a united front in the fight for justice and equality for all swords, and a reiteration of their commitment to soulism. While we agree that all citizens of Sordland should be treated equally as per Article 6 of the Constitution, we must question the motives of these parties who are coming together this time. It is important to remember that Governor Braun has been instrumental in bringing stability to Bergia after years of unrest, and his policies have led to economic growth and progress. Nevertheless, we do support the notion that all citizens of Sordland must be treated equally under the law, and that Governor Braun must ensure that the policies and the decisions made by the Special Zone Administration are in line with the principle and enshrined in the Constitution. We hope the Supreme Court will consider the parties' statements and make a joint decisions, taking into account all the factors at play. Okay, a boon for Sordland. Our government's hefty investment in Gulfstream has proved successful, bringing newfound stability to our domestic energy sector. This decisive action from the government has not only saved one of the biggest energy companies from financial downfall, but has also solidified Sordland's commitment to supporting its industries. The investment has set Gulfstream back on track and has showcased how the government's strategic moves can bring prosperity to the nation. The WBP condemns President Rayne. The Workers' Party of Blodia, the WBP, has voiced their dissatisfaction with President Rayne's recent statement regarding the case of Ishvil Ersin. According to the WBP, while they appreciate the supportive statements, they felt that the president fails to address the underlying issues of inherent racism in the Constitution. Fetel Egel, leader of the WBP, said there is no way for the British community to support the government in the current situation, especially President Rayne is willing to take the side of the NFP. The WBP accused the president of protecting the Soulish Constitution, which does not recognize the British people. They also condemned the government, the NFP, and the Supreme Court for their complicity in maintaining the status quo. The WPP statement called for constitutional reforms that recognize the right of all Swedish citizens regardless of their background. WP's reaction has sparked debate among the public, with some agreeing with their stance and others criticizing their condemnation of the government. The USP, the NFP, and PFJP displayed their commitment to soulism. Yesterday's Victory Day celebrations were supposed to be a joyous occasion to celebrate Sordland's triumph in peace, but instead they were marred by the USP, the PFJP, and the NFP's joint statement displaying a unique unity on soulism. We see the statement as merely an attempt to gain political leverage over Governor Braun and earn British votes by capitalizing on the British crisis. The NFP in particular is using the situation to further their political interest, which is utterly shameful. The party specifically mentioned in the resettlement order, which has caused much controversy and suffering among the British population. While we support the call for justice and equality of the British population, the statement mentioned Article 6 of the Constitution as the basis for their opposition, which refers to everyone in the country as swords, and does not recognize any other cultures. We must remember the Constitution was written by and for a dominant Swordish culture, and it is inherently racist and fails to account for the diversity of the people in this land. The Constitution's mere existence reinforces the power structures and enables discrimination against non-swords. While we welcome the supportive statement of for Ishvil Ersin, the fact that these parties cannot agree with all those points and admit the racism in our Constitution makes it very difficult for us to believe that any positive changes are happening. Is there like a Never mind. Okay, must be cautious against this opportunistic behavior of the political parties, especially the NFP. And foreign investment is... Begin is witnessing a retreat of foreign investment from his energy sector. Unfortunate, but that looks like that is going to be the end of this, like, turn. Chapter 3. Victims of Changes. How many chapters are there again? I literally don't remember. I'm actually going to Google this. I don't actually remember off the top of my head. How many chapters in Suzerain? There's 4, right? Or is there 10? I don't quite remember. Okay, yeah, there's 4. I remember that. It's like there's 4 chapters